Hello, I'm Laura Kelly, and welcome to POCCA TV. Today we are at LCTV at Dowcett Regional High School in Northeast Ham on Cape Cod. I'm the 11th generation, born and raised here on the Cape, and it really gets me to think about the possibility of the next 11 generations. So I'm trying to bring shows locally here to the Cape with topics that are hopefully important to us all. Today's topic is about oysters, all about oysters. I found a wonderful person who has really brought in the, I want to say, education of oysters to many different countries internationally. So today I'd like to introduce to you Karan. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for being with us. And can you say your name properly?
Yes, Kahren.
Karan, because
Yes,
I didn't
Kahren.
think I just did. And your last name?
Dowcett.
And where do you live?
Yarmouthport?
Now you're here.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes,
Excellent.
yes.
Excellent.
Well, I've been here since '99.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
That's a great thing. The Cape is so beautiful, and there's so many things going on here.
That is true.
So what brought you here?
Well, I moved back here because of summering here as a child and
I bet.
spending a lot of time in tide pools and discovering nature firsthand in that way. And so it was really a return.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
like most of the people probably.
how did you get connected with oysters?
Well, it's really hard not to be connected with oysters in some way, you know, just being here. But back in 2004, I wrote a teaching tale that featured the science and the life cycle of the oyster, and that traveled into schools. And so more recently, in a couple years ago, I kind of rewrote it, actually made it a little longer, and began to take a closer look at oysters and talking with people, learning that there wasn't the oyster understanding of all that they do for us. And
They do more than just taste good.
well, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. So that's was kind of the launching of the research for the play.
Great.
Yeah.
Tell us about the play a little.
Well, it's a comedy. I mean, you can't have a play about an
Can't go
oyster
wrong.
without it being funny, you know. And it really deals with the life cycle, as I said. It's based on the actual science of the oyster. But it's interesting because the hero, the superhero, Sammy Spad, is 1 in a million. And that is a true statement. It's kind of where that statement comes from, because there are millions and millions of eggs released, but often only 1 in a million survives, and he's
That's
that
amazing.
one. So he doesn't understand how special he is. You know, he's referred to by the other characters, "Hey, kid, you know, you're 1 in a million." But he's like, "Well, I'm all alone. I want to hook up," but of course he can't hook up because there's no reef. You know, and
Right.
so he goes on a quest and finds some gumption to go out into the deep, and you know, so it's all very fun. He gets
Cute.
seduced by a starfish, and,
What a
and she
riot.
gets whisked off by a mussel, and it's funny. It's a lot of time.
So did this get you to want to be more involved with protecting oysters?
Well, actually, no, it's not about protecting, it's about repopulation, because the oyster habitat in the wild is really threatened. I mean, it's the most endangered habitat we learn, on the planet. And and most people that I've talked with and the focus groups that I've done around the play in preparation for the play don't have an understanding that there is such a thing as an oyster reef. And we have learned a lot about coral reefs, and and that they're really the nursery of a vast array of species, and that is true for the oyster reefs, as well. So where the reefs exist, fish flourish. So there's a direct correlation. So repopulation is one aspect of the oyster, and the reefs protect us, protect our shoreline. But then there's the whole aquaculture industry, and which is not so much in the wild. It's sort of in the wild because they're grown in the actual water of, on the shoreline, but in a more controlled environment. But they're doing a great job too because they filter. So
yes, Can we talk about the beauty? One of the, oysters, of course, they taste good. And they bring us pearls once in a while if we're lucky, right? Have you ever found a pearl?
No, I haven't.
Seriously?
And the species that we have here don't generally produce a pearl, but they can. But it's not a regular thing, for them.
So there I was at the Beachcomber on opening weekend, and I just got half a dozen oysters and opened it up, and I got this close, and I saw what's that, and pushed it around. It was actually a gray, forming pearl is what they called it. So there's tiny, but it was a moment. I had a moment. So excited.
Yeah, well, that's very special. That's very special.
But oysters filter for us.
Yes, they do.
And there's an amount, is it 50 gallons?
About 50 gallons.
A day, like a normal size? Or is it
just an oyster a day, yeah. So it's really...
that boggles me.
So it's probably the equivalent of your bathtub full of water.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do they filter out?
Well, they filter out the nitrogen, and they just feed on what's in the water.
So it's exactly what we're working on with the Cape Cod Commission's 208 wastewater plan. We're trying to add oyster beds in to the equation, as well as eelgrass beds, trees, and what I'm calling sustainable systems.
Yes.
There's engineers, of course, wanting to do a broad range of all sorts of other systems throughout the Cape, but I'm really feeling like the voice of the sustainable side.
Yes,
and I talk about oysters a lot. Wellfleet has created a area already, a bed for this, and I think it's been about a year where they're just filtering and they're monitoring how much they're filtering. And so this is something that we can put in coves and inlets throughout the Cape, because our impact as people, as we do all the time, nitrogen is going to happen from fertilizers to, our wastewater. So how neat would it be to actually create sustainable systems?
Well, absolutely. And, the oysters are nature's broom, or we can think of them as nature's Brita.
I like that. Wow.
Yeah.
So have you been doing this in other places around the world?
Doing what now?
I'm creating oyster beds, or
No, I'm not creating
situations?
oyster beds. I'm just I'm involved in the World Oyster Society. And so because of that, we are bringing the Society's next International Symposium to Cape Cod.
Did you hear that? Say that again. Look in the camera and say that.
We are bringing the next International Oyster Symposium to Cape Cod in 2015, in October.
Oh my goodness.
I
Okay,
know.
so that's 6 days, 7 days? It's a week.
It's a 3-day. It's a 3-day conference typically.
Okay.
So it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
And special guests and hosts from
All over the world.
the world coming here to Cape Cod to
I
talk
know.
about oysters, their life cycles, all the things that they can actually do for us. Plays, other things?
Well, there'll be cultural activities and there'll be pre-conference activities, so that
Nice.
our visitors, who probably will come for more than just the 3 days,
Right.
So we want to provide them a rich opportunity and be good hosts. And there's lots to see on the Cape. The conference will be held in Woods Hole at
Excellent.
Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution is one of our collaborating partners, along with the Marine Biological Lab and others. So we're gathering, the voices of in the oyster world from around the world to really bring forward leading and thinking research that applies for industry and end
So
users,
great.
consumers.
What an honor,
Yeah.
really. What an honor to have this happen here on Cape Cod. It's the 6th one, right?
It's the 6th one.
So it's kind of the beginning.
Well, it happens every other year.
Every other
so
year.
the first one, and most of them have been based in Asia.
Wow.
And I just returned from the last one, which was just this past December in Vietnam, and made a presentation why the Cape would be a great place for hosting the next conference. And there were other countries vying for it, but I guess we did a good job.
Good job! All right.
And so it was a
Good for
unanimous
you.
vote to have it here on the
Well,
Cape.
we all should go then, right?
Well, yes.
And information hopefully will be getting scrolled up on the show, so people can see where to go to learn more about this. This happens after the Wellfleet. What is that? Yeah, the
the
Oyster
Oyster Fest.
Festival. I'm trying to think of the date, but I don't know it this year. So
Well, it's always the weekend after Columbus Day weekend. So
That's a good way of looking at it.
we are inaugurating this year for fall of 2014 Cape Cod Oyster Week.
Nice.
With some specialized events and with a sort of a fuller plethora of programming for 2015 around the symposium. So the symposium will happen within Cape Cod Oyster Week on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But it will begin the weekend that the Oyster Fest happens in Wellfleet, and then it'll culminate down at the other end of the Cape. So there'll be a whole host of things happening in between that people conjure up, and
What a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we are an oyster community.
Yeah,
From Provincetown down to Woods Hole.
absolutely.
So it's a great thing to have us all kind of.
Well, yeah, it's a livelihood for a lot of people here.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a growth industry. It's a growth industry. Yep.
And the restaurants, there's so many unique restaurants doing different things, fried oysters, and so many details I don't even know about with them.
Well, it's amazing, just looking at the Chesapeake Bay, for example. I mean, at one time, it's a huge body of water. And based on the number of oysters that were there, the entire contents could be filtered in 3 days.
Wow.
By the oysters. So the whole water would turn over in 3 days. There were
That's
that many oysters.
amazing.
So you kind of do the math.
And so the oysters that are set up as filtration beds, they wouldn't be consumed, right?
Well, it depends. I kind of think of them as working oysters, and certainly there should, and it seems that it would be a good idea to have
like a restricted area. Like
labels, like poison, skull and cross, don't eat these oysters, because they're about the business of
the metals and the filtrating.
Sure.
And they can get bigger and multiply. So through time, it actually grows. It's better, right? It actually.
Well, sure. They reproduce and populate and grow. Yeah, if they can
So you start off with 100 or 1,000. Before you know it, it'll be a couple thousand. So that's a neat concept to think about. Setting something up now for the future.
Correct.
And as far as the lifestyle of the oyster goes, is there something that could, a disease or a bacteria, fungus, is there something that could actually, wreck a system that we would set up?
Yes. Yep. Crashes have happened. And crashes probably will happen.
Sure.
It's just part of the cycle of nature. And so there's a lot of research that's being done now in relation to how do you set out oysters that have the capacity to sustain themselves and in the changing conditions based on our climate change.
Climate change, yeah, sure.
And water temperature, and there was some very interesting papers delivered on that in Vietnam. And so we're, so it's great, scientists and researchers are taking a look at that so that we can, so that we understand.
Yeah, that's a neat way to get the scientists involved in all this too. The naturalists are saying, let's have tons of beds, sure. And more is better, you know, but to have the scientists get involved, and that's an excellent place to be.
Well, sure. I mean, because we all have a particular point of view, a particular need, and a particular conversation to bring in the overarching oyster conversation. So the symposium will offer up some of that, and that's a good thing, because we all need those various strands in the conversation to, you know, weave it together and make the complete story going forward. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So tell me a little bit about your organization. I know you've talked and dabbled on it many times throughout the show, but what is the name of it, the symposium?
Well, it's the 6th International Oyster Symposium of the World Oyster Society.
Wow, that's a long title. It's a tongue twister right there.
Yeah.
And then when you were in Vietnam, there was a doctor that we quoted, or that you have quoted to me. Can you give us that quote? What is that?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's actually Dr. Maury's quote, and he's actually the president of the society.
Great.
And the quote is, "Let the sea live, let us live with the sea."
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nicely said. I read that the other day, and it just resonated in me. So say it one more time. Say it to the camera.
Let the sea live, let us live with the sea.
Let's live with the sea. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's something about the collaborating that you know, every single day we have to think about what we're doing in nature as well. We're a product of nature. We came from nature.
Right.
And we're getting, you know, this technology world and et cetera, we're getting more removed from nature. And, you know, thinking about being with it again, that really made a difference to me. And this oysters are just another creature on this planet. And with us, what we can do is actually lessen our impact every single day, and it'll make a difference for these little boogers.
Well, they're pretty adaptable. I mean, the oysters have been around for 500 million
Before
years,
us, right?
You know, and so they really kind of, you know, they're in for the long haul. But we all have a threshold. I mean, we ourselves as humans, you know, we kind of have a tipping point where we then fall into ill health. So we, you know, so to minimize those stressors, those factors that bring that about, you know, we have the ability to find out what those are and, you know, take positive action.
Think about, you know, what we're purchasing. I think that's a big part of, you know, I always say your dollar is your vote. Every single day we have lots of choices of, you know, different products that we can purchase, you know, even where we go to eat. Do we want to build that company? You know, are they doing right by the planet? Are they recycling? Can we recycle better? You know, there's so many little things that if we just take care of our world, it's going to make a difference. You know, sometimes we get bogged down with what's going on? I you know, who am I? I'm like this big in the vastness of the planet, but each one of us matters. We all make a difference, and
well, that's right. And even just eating oysters makes a difference. I mean, when you eat oysters, you know that it increases demand, and the more oysters in the water, the cleaner the water.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a reverse paradigm.
Yes. And recently you had a chance to meet our Senator, Dan Wolf, and talk about this?
Yes, yeah. Well, when Dr. Maury actually came over for the opening of the play that was run in Provincetown in 2012, which was a surprise, you know. So we had a lot of scientists, and we did a wonderful discussion afterwards. So scientists talked with the general public about the information that was delivered in a comic way, but in an accurate way in the play. And then Dr. Maury stayed for several days, and part of his visit was being introduced by Senator Wolf on the Senate floor. Cool. So and the idea, so he and I and his wife Yoshiko were introduced, and the idea of the possibility of the Cape hosting the next International Symposium, and we got a standing ovation from the Senate. Everyone just stood up. Well, and it was more than just a polite one. I mean, it was really heartfelt, and it made me proud, actually, because of being treated with such respect. And Dr. Mori has gained the respect of Asian countries and the work that he's done. And
Sure.
so it was wonderful, and that was the genesis, really, of the journey that's taking us now to the planning of this, which will be a year and a half. So,
Wow,
yeah,
congratulations.
yeah. And so Senator Wolf, Dan, has been a very big, supporter, and believes in this, and believes what this can do for the Cape oyster economy in the world oyster
Sure.
market, and so tourism, and there's a lot of benefits that will come from this. Yeah.
Yep, the businesses, the locals, even education. Education, I think, is the key to all success. You know, so even this show, if people learn a little bit, it's helpful to the oysters in
Yes.
general. You know, so
Exactly.
good for Dan
Exactly.
for being like a part of this.
Yes, I know. Well, he's great. He's great. He sees things.
Yeah, he gets
he
it.
does.
You know.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's something just inside him automatically. It's just part of his makeup. He
Yes.
just already gets it.
Yep.
So there's other things going on here, the Cape, with NSTAR wanting to spray herbicides on power lines, and I've come to find out that one of the herbicides that they plan on spraying is actually highly deathly to oysters. And so it's something that you can't get on the shelves here on the Cape. It's something that one of the two things that they will be introducing, one of the two herbicides that will be introduced to Cape Cod that hasn't been here before. And we're doing whatever we can to educate that this is just, it's unnecessary. They can go back to mowing, they can graze sheep, whatever, it's
Right.
just another topic that's current events, what's going on around here. And what a shame if we're doing all this work and then there's, it's just counterproductive to see this, a possible scenario play out. So
we have to bring that into the conversation during the symposium.
Great idea. I'll be glad to help out with that.
Okay. You're on.
Yeah, it's been a long haul. On that topic, and I think every one of us, again, back to purchasing, and what are you putting on your lands? It's, we live on a sandbar, it's going to permeate through the ground. There are other alternatives. Please seek them, do your own research, and things like Roundup, if you've got some weeds, if you can't pull it, yourself, which is the easy answer, just get some exercise on the deal. Vinegar would be the alternative, so, and it's cheaper. And so, I guess everybody needs to figure out, their levels of what they're going to do to, lessen their impact and such, But thank you very much for being here. Do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our local community today?
Just, if you haven't eaten an oyster, go eat an oyster.
I love fried oysters. That's my thing. I'm like, anything fried is good, but I have to tell you, a good fried oyster is really good.
Yeah. Well, I prefer them just raw, just straight up, right on the half shell. It's like communing with the sea. They're great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most pure state is, of course, the best.
And, they're one of the few foods that deliver vitamin D.
Oh, no kidding.
Correct.
Right. Sunlight,
Yeah,
huh?
right.
Wow.
And there was a paper given in Vietnam that there's a new antioxidant discovered in oysters that crosses the brain-blood barrier.
Ooh.
So we'll be hearing more about that, too.
That's exciting. Yeah. So eat more.
So they are like in top of the chart with zinc and, a lot of minerals. They're excellent. Wow. Excellent food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, don't be afraid to get your oyster or your shellfish license in town. I think it's less than $50, and every town on the Cape has their own beds and such. So have fun playing around with that.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Well, thanks for being here and sharing all that you're
Thank
doing.
You. It's great. It's great.
Bringing the International Symposium to the Cape Up, that's just huge. You know, I read that and I was like, I got to get to know you better. So I look forward to being there and learning more. Thank you.
Great. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to POCCA Cape Cod. And again, enjoy some oysters and do your best to lessen your own impact on our environment so the oysters are happy surviving with us as well. Again, this is LCTV, and next in upcoming shows, we'll be looking to how alternatives for mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. I've got a great person who's able to do that with non-toxic remedies. So be well in the meantime, and enjoy the summer here on Cape Cod. Take care.